Okay, so moving on.
Moving right along. Okay, so before we go on to the next point, I want to jump back to a different point. That we this is just a piece of evidence that we forgot to do. So that the second hero of Ocarina of Time, this one, or no, never mind. Sorry, totally unrelated. I was thinking second hero of Child Timeline, but we're getting to that. So, luckily I remembered that, so... Alright, okay. Phantom Sand is creepy!
I'm not sure if we mentioned that the hero's shade has no bones and a round shield. I don't know how much that matters, but I don't know if we actually said that, is what I mean. So, yeah, that's a thing that stands out to me, because Link doesn't use...
bones.
What?
He has bones in his arms.
I don't think he does, because he has the shadow that fades in and out. He doesn't have the skeletal structure. He has arms made of shade.
Huh.
Because he's a shade, not a Stalfos.
Yeah. Okay. So Phantom Sand is creepy. It really is. Like, here, have this sand that allows you to survive in life-sucking zones.
So it's...
so most likely it's dead people.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Just being honest here, most likely it's dead
life
people.
Force.
Compressed life force. That they were just... Weird. It's like Full Metal Alchemist. They were like, Philosopher's Stone, we can't do it. Then make it sand. Yeah, okay.
So, that's basically it. I haven't played Phantom Hourglass recently enough to have much else on it.
Okay, and then... So, this next point is one that is just so incredibly obvious. How do people think this? Rito are not Zoras. This is the point. Rito are not Zoras.
I think we kind of covered this. One of my things in Skyloft Does Not Hyrule, I believe.
Most likely.
Where the humans are unchanged and they are not equipped to live in this world as well as any of the other races, and yet they're unchanged through the whole thing. And then within 1,000 years, the Zoras, the ocean-dwelling people, can suddenly fly and have beaks and wings and feathers. And it's weird.
They don't serve sense. And they don't reign supreme in the Great Sea.
Yeah.
Like, seriously. So, I think where this misconception comes from is, first off, there is no appearance of the Zoras in any of the Child Timeline games. And then the Rito Sage...
Do you mean Adult Timeline?
Huh?
I think he does.
Yes, adult. Sorry. Adult Timeline. Well, because they're all kids.
Yeah. The Toon Link era.
Yeah. The Toon Links. So, they... Oh my gosh. Right. So, the Rito girl that is a sage, the previous sage before her was a Zora. So people automatically assume that they're the same, that they must have been the same race, and the same thing happens with the Koroks and the Kokiri. They just assume since both of them were sages, they must be the same race, just evolved.
You know, instead of one race leaving and another one coming in. That's impossible.
Absolutely absurd, Paris.
Most likely, the Zoras are just underwater.
Being like, yeah!
Who rules the seas now?
Kyogre. So, the Rito are not Zoras. That just doesn't make sense
at all, even a little.
I found a defense theory for this, that the Zoras had to go onto land, and they developed like this because Ganon sent his monsters into the sea, and so they were just hunted in the sea, so they had to go on land. First off, there's monsters on the land, too. That wouldn't do crap for them. And secondly...
Just
Zoras,
because you want to evolve doesn't mean you will evolve.
and also Zoras are warriors.
Yeah, they are way better fighters than the army in Hyrule.
Not to mention their giant, big, fat king. Like, he moves super slow on land, but that's probably because he is a big, fat Zora. Underwater, he is probably like a tank. A really, really fast tank, too.
And it's not like the Zora don't have cities and caves.
Yeah.
It's silly. Like, in Labyrinthia, there is an entire underwater village of Zoras. It's silly to think that... Oh, also, they're not just in Hyrule.
Yeah.
They don't just live in Hyrule. They could just leave, and the Rito could have just come over and lost records or something, and they just think they're Zoras because they're kind of, sort of, ish, not even a little similar.
Yeah. So that point is pretty self-explanatory. So the next one, Triforce sends Link on missions. This happens in Link's Awakening and the Oracle games, right?
I don't know if it does in Link's Awakening, but it does in the Oracle games. Link goes to a temple that I believe is not the Temple of Time. I'll have to look at the cutscene. I don't remember it looking like the Temple of Time, which also solidifies, in my opinion, my idea that it is not the only Temple of Time. There's not just one of them. That's so annoying and frustrating. But he goes there, and there's the Triforce, and all of a sudden, for some reason, he falls through a portal and wakes up in either Holodrum or Labyrinthia, depending on which game you're playing. So he got sent to save the world, land, place over there.
Well, I mean, it's not like it matters. They're just two different versions.
Yeah, that was annoying. I saw someone saying that they should not do versions like Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons. And they are not versions. They're two completely separate, distinct games with different plots, different villains, different worlds, different items to an extent. A lot of the classic Zelda items are there. You know, like every Zelda, the different versions of Zelda, they all have hook shots, which this one doesn't. It has the switch hook, which is amazing.
Yeah, switch hook is pretty great.
And it's not a version. It's a similar game on the same console that is completely different. It's just the graphics, honestly.
Yeah.
And the time. And the fact that they're linked in the most awesome way I've seen. Like, Pokemon, the different versions that are actually versions have different Pokemon. That's it. They have slightly different Pokemon, so you have to have both to complete your collection.
And different stereotypes for the bad guys.
Okay.
Don't forget the stereotypes.
I love the stereotypes. Those are my favorite.
But in Oracle of Ages and Seasons, you get several different items, and you get completely different dungeons, completely different overworlds, completely different mechanics, and different stories, different antagonists, and they link together to fight, to get a little bit more story. And you can do them in either order. Because both orders work, you can't find a canonical order to which one happened first, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that's super cool. And then you can link them to fight the final boss, which is Twinrova and Ganon, which I think is neat.
Yeah.
Also, the seed shooter and the seeds should come back because they were great.
Yeah, those were pretty awesome.
That's the closest we've ever got to Link having a gun. He gets a magic shoot seeds that catch
Yeah.
on fire device. And the writing, the different animal friends, Moosh and Ricky and Dimitri. And then you box a penguin, which is awesome. And
Yeah.
you get a punch ring that makes it so you can punch things in the face, and it does as much damage as a bomb.
Yeah,
It's
that's
great.
really impressive.
Oh, man.
So,
There was... and then the only way... Random tidbit. The only way to get the fairy equivalent is to... In Ages, you can eventually buy it in Seasons. The only way to get it in Ages is to bump into the witch and play the little mini game and hopefully get the magic potion, which will revive you one time. And you can only have one at a time. And, you know,
goodness. Alright, next point.
is second hero of Child Timeline. We kind of covered that.
Well, sort of. We did the second hero of Ocarina of Time.
Which I still completely support.
Yeah, but so this
I think that's totally
second
right.
hero of Child Timeline is so when you go back in time where the Master Sword is in Twilight Princess, you go in and
Oh, yeah.
it's back in time. You go in and the Master Sword is not there. That's a point that I missed the first few times I played through the game until Avery finally pointed it out to me. But back in the era where you were, the Master Sword is not in its place.
Which
And that is
means
not
someone
the
is
Temple of
using
Time in Ocarina of Time. A lot of people assume it is just because it has the same name, the Temple of Time. But first
Again,
off, those statues are way different, and
There's not
There-
just one Temple of Time.
that point is actually in, like, 3. And so it's... I saw one person theorizing that the dungeon behind it was the Temple of Light that we never actually see. It's referenced to in Ocarina of Time as the last stronghold against Ganon's forces in the Sacred Realm. So I saw someone theorizing that that was the Temple of Time dungeon in the back in Twilight Princess. But it's not. First off, it has a physical form in the normal world, not the Sacred Realm. And you can and those places where you fight the Skull Kid and all of its puppets, those are rooms from the temple. So it's
As
not.
well as it being entirely different.
So that just means that there's. So what that means is that there is a second Master Sword in not the Kingdom Falls timeline. So, and there was a hero for it. Like, so, we went over this. Pharaoh made a second Master Sword.
I just thought of something about the Temple of Time dungeon in
What?
Twilight Princess. That doesn't necessarily have to be in between Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time. That could be
Yeah.
anywhere from the beginning of the Zelda world to
The end of the Zelda world.
Yeah.
They assume it's back in time, but,
could
you
be
know.
forward.
They could have restored the temple.
Or, you know, and the messenger staff, the Dominion Rod. The Dominion Rod obviously can be recharged.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's probably in the past, but we don't know that for sure because time travel sucks.
Yep. So, okay, so I just remembered one of the points that we missed on the Ganondorf is the hero. So in Ocarina of Time, he destroys the entire town, except for the one place that allows you to travel between the two times and defeat him. He never cracks a brick on the Temple of Time. That is sacred ground to him just as much as it is everyone else.
Probably. And he never posted a guard there.
Mm-mm.
You'd think he'd just have someone sit there, wait for Link, and kill him when he wakes up. But nope. He's just like, whatever.
Yeah.
Because that's what the super genius
So-
would do.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So, next point
The
is
Picori hero.
the Picori hero. Yep.
That's just the fact that we never see him in between Skyward Sword and Minish Cap, which shows that a whole heck of a lot happened there, and I don't understand. Have you seen anyone put Breath of the Wild in between Skyward Sword and Minish Cap?
No.
No? Even though
Yeah,
that's...
they're always at the end, except for that one theory that said that it could be another branch off of the adult era.
I think it's either right after Skyward Sword, with, in the enormous amount of time between that one and Minish Cap, or after the Oracle games. That's my belief.
Yeah.
And I want to be the hero of light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Still holding on to that.
So that's just pointing out something that is commonly overlooked. The Picori hero we have not seen yet. There are still a lot of heroes that we have not seen, and people just ignore that fact.
Yeah, they're like, we know that because they said you need to save Hyrule again, that this was a link from one of the other games. No, we don't. Not even kind of. There is no evidence no real evidence that this is a link from another game.
Yeah.
It's just jumping to
Yeah.
conclusions. There is no reason to assume that this is a link we've seen in a game. Which,
So,
then...
Triforce
that's-
Heroes is dark and evil.
I think we talked about this a lot in the first episode, so we don't really
Yeah.
have to go
So we
through
went
that.
over that. Doppels are super creepy and they absorb and they suck out your soul. I think that sums it up pretty well.
We talked about how the Kaoporo, Gaoporo, and Feor are on Link's timeline, right?
Yes, we did.
Cool. Then... More than one Temple of Time. I've said this many times, so you're probably bored of it. That's it.
There's just more
like,
than one Temple of Time.
There's several at least, and people are like, the Temple of Time, the only one. That's 2 rooms. In
Because there's
Ocarina of
only
Time.
one temple, and there was only ever one Temple of Buddha. There was only ever one Mormon temple. There was only ever one.
Shrine in Japan. That
They
makes...
assume that because it's called the Temple of Time, that it is the Temple of Time.
Yeah, the 2-room church house is the only Temple of Time in the entire world, and that giant dungeon is the same building. That's 100% fact.
Yup.
Not true fact, but that is a fact.
So, and then, where are Gorons in Wind Waker?
We talked about that. Gorons can breathe underwater and lava. That's basically it. That's just weird.
And Avery and I thought of a couple different things. Either they required very, very little oxygen.
Well, they were talking underwater.
Yeah.
So they were inhaling and exhaling.
Or the water in Hyrule just has an extremely high sulfur content and their breathing is sulfur-based, not oxygen-based. Both of these are very far-fetched, and we advise you do not believe us on either.
Pretty
But-
sure that high of a sulfur content would be poisonous.
Yeah, exactly. But so there's that.
And then
don't
we talked
test it
about
yourself.
Subrosia. All of the heroes had lives before heroing, except the hero of light.
And then I spelled out crossed out, or it was except light guy, and then I spelled out crossed out
Hero
hero of light.
Yeah, that's one reason I really think we're playing Hero of Light. in addition to the fact that they are trying very hard to be surprising with the story in Breath of the Wild, they've said this multiple times. They're going to surprise us with things they're doing, misleading us, and the fact that they called him Link, even that can be seen as reason to believe it'll be the Hero of Light. So I'm really hoping.
So there are just a couple of the links that I want to touch on for this points. My two favorites, actually, the Hero of Time and Hero of Twilight. So the Hero of Time, if you look around in his house, he has farm tools and farm supplies. And he knows how to ride a horse right after he gets on it. He was not a stranger to animals, and my theory, that's all the evidence to it, but my theory is that he was actually a farmer of some sort, a farmer or a rancher.
Because, again, the games are only representations of the area in each area, and they're not to scale, so we don't really know how big the Kokori village was. So that's a thing. They might have had farms and fields and animals, for food, because Link is not dead.
Yeah. And then the Hero of Twilight, he was actually practicing swordplay. He practiced swordplay, and
he had dummies and he had targets, and Russell, I believe, was teaching him.
And it doesn't say explicitly, you have to look for it a little bit, but the kids, when they're asking you to show them how to use a sword, they say, "What about that thing you do? Hey, I've seen you do this before. How did you do that?" He has practiced before in front of them. They know he is a swordsman.
So that's neat.
If he had been there, if he had been human when the monsters came, they probably would have turned to him and Russell. Well, Russell and him. They wouldn't have just been like, "Russell, save us." They would have been like, "Russell and Link, save us."
Plus the fact that you can catch a goat by the horns when it's charging and stop it. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So that's basically it. And why it says except Hero of Light is because, again, in Breath of the Wild, you wake up and you go. And there's no motivation except save Hyrule, which is the only motivation the Hero of Light ever is given. Just go save Hyrule, that's your purpose. And I think they could do a great story with that. Yep. And I really want them to.
Alright, so we're starting to run out of time. We'll probably go a little bit over, but we'll probably keep it to 2 parts today. We're getting really close to the end, just 2 more points, and one of them we've basically already discussed.
We talked about the Gossip Stones.
So,
pretty good.
1.5 points, essentially. So, just stick with us for probably about 5 minutes.
A few more minutes.
So, the next point is, who built the Ocarina of Time temples? We are not talking about the Temple of Time. We are talking about the Forest Temple, Water Temple.
Trial things.
Yeah.
Well, and from our Ganondorf is a hero training Link, that could be just Ganondorf had them built.
Well, not the Forest Temple, because that was there as a child.
Yeah, that's true.
They were all there as a child.
Okay.
You just never actually saw them, but they were there.
And then
they're just these big mysteries that we have no idea. They're just there.
Magic-y.
And I mean, maybe it was like the super ancient sages. They were like, "I want a temple to me." Why? 'Cause why not?
'Cause that's creepy. So
I am a sage. Worship me. I want a temple.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, that one is just like a mystery. It's like just one of those things.
Something to point out and get out in the chat and the
yeah.
talking discussions. Like, there's a lot of things that are not being discussed that should be discussed instead of the things that are being discussed.
Yeah.
And it's annoying sometimes that people just don't see things, and I don't have, or didn't have, a way to get people to talk about them. Hopefully I will.
Yeah. All right, so the last point, which we discussed
Wait, let's
pretty
just
in-depth.
say...
What the heck are the gossip stones? We already discussed this.
One more thing we forgot to put about Geoporo not being Rauru. Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
I know we talked about the Deku Tree serving Feor.
And Geoporo being on the same timeline as Link.
Yeah, and
I think we talked about him serving Feor.
I think we did too.
I don't think we explicitly said he is not Rauru.
I don't think we did either. But yeah, Rauru was stuck in the light realm, sacred realm place.
He was in there, and he had no way to get out until Link opened it. There is no way he was controlling an owl when he was stuck behind a wall that managed to seal Ganondorf for well over 100 years.
Owls and wolves, I think, are sacred for reasons, because I think we talked about how I think wolves are the form heroes turn into when they
can't take their natural form.
Except in the Dark World, where you turn into a bunny, because that's weird.
Well, because it's the Dark World. The opposite of the predator, the wolf, is the prey, a bunny.
Well, it
is also specifically made to keep you from being awesome. Was it? Well, it was made by Ganon, and that it would make sense that would.
The reason you turned into a bunny is because bunnies are like super nice and like everyone, and the Dark World makes your insides, like who you are on the inside, who you are on the outside.
Mm.
And so since Link was super nice,
that Link. So that Link was super nice and in a completely different situation, so he turned into a bunny, and then the missing hero and hero of Twilight turned into wolves.
Yeah.
And then the owls are advisors to all of the heroes whenever they're around, like the owl statues in Majora's Mask and the Oracle games, and Geoporo, and I think it makes sense that they work with Feor.
Yeah. Oh, I had one more point to leave off on. It was something about theories.
I don't know.
Can't remember.
So, we're probably going to finish up.
I'll probably remember it right after, too. But, so, just for a second, the Ganondorf is a hero. I think Calamity Ganon is Ganon as a spirit form right after Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons being tethered to Ganondorf's body. So this is what I'm hoping to see after we defeat Calamity Ganon is Ganondorf in this just perpetual state of pain, just being that tethered point, and as soon as he gets freed, him standing, looking to Link, and saying thank you, and giving him a big hug. That's what I want to see at the end of Breath of the Wild.
That would be interesting.
I don't think it's going to happen. It might if they're trying to surprise everybody, but
which
probably
they are.
not.
Okay, so that's about it. We're probably not gonna do huge episodes. What? We're not gonna do huge episodes only about Zelda until Breath of the Wild comes out, and then we'll probably do at least 1 or 2 hours of just talking about it.
I really had something that
I don't remember.
It was in my head. And now I just can't remember.
Write it down when you remember, and then we can bring it up next time. Or just bringing it out up next time. Tomorrow.
Edited out. Phantom. We did not have any phantom powers this episode.
We probably will. So things happen. We're gonna say goodbye. See you tomorrow.